The movie I, Robot, which starred Will Smith, illustrated the society in 2035 in which the technology of artificial intelligence has been commonly applied. In the movie, AI is capable of murdering human and controlling human. However, it's only the delusion of the directors and producers of the movie. What is the society really like with AIs and humans? Will we get along in peace or end up like the movie? Let us invite our last group of student speaker, Kira and Kenneth, to give us an insight into it.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kenneth.
And I'm Kira.
AI has developed more rapidly than ever. It has loads more functions, is more humanized, and is being used more frequently by us. Moreover, while it is useful, it is gradually replacing humans. Let's think, is AI good or is it bad? We believe that it is hard for us to define that, since there are so many factors defining whether it is good or bad. So AI by itself, just like a lot of things, are neutral. If we put it in good use, it's good, but if we put it in bad use, it's bad. Let's dive into a few examples of AI products put into use.
To start with, filter bubbles. I used to think that filter bubbles is a bad tool because it is making us biased, especially when it comes to politics. I know that when you're always watching news from a certain news publisher, YouTube or Google is always going to push political videos from that publisher to you. I agree that it does make me biased, simply just if I was following closely to the Miss Hong Kong election from Apple Daily. If I was recommended and I watched a negative commentary video about one of the candidates by Apple Daily, it would definitely give me a bad impression of her immediately. But if filter bubbles are said to be a bad tool because it is providing us the same news publisher regularly, showing us only one side of the opinions, then how do you define good? The opposite? But is it really good if YouTube was programmed to provide 10 videos from 10 different news publishers? In reality, we're not going to analyze a neutral stance after watching all these videos from different publishers. We are biased. Actually, we always were. Even back during the newspaper period, you would choose to buy either One Way Pao, Apple Daily, or Ming Pao in the newsstand, judging on your usual stance, choosing differently if you are supporting the government, the public, or being neutral. You would mostly keep on buying the newspaper that you read most frequently. You won't read 10 different newspapers in order to have a bigger picture of the whole situation and pick the most suitable stance. So now with filter bubbles, you won't have to buy your everyday newspaper. Filter bubbles will provide you news content from the publisher that you usually read. The only difference between newspaper and filter bubbles is that filter bubbles can push you much more content in a very short time. Though despite that, filter bubbles is just automatically providing us news that we frequently watch, when before we had to buy the newspapers ourselves. This is why it's hard to define filter bubbles as good or bad, because there's not only two sides. You could argue that there's nothing wrong with filter bubbles if it's just automatically providing us what we want to see. We would choose what we want to see even if filter bubbles doesn't exist. And I agree with this. We always have choices. We choose what we want to support. Being biased is not bad because we wouldn't expect people to be completely neutral before deciding every choice. People would stick and fight for their own stance. I don't think the system filter bubbles is bad anymore, but when it's only providing us one-sided opinions, I do think receiving and accepting different sides of opinions is important as well. Having debates and communications is helpful when it comes to setting policies or elections. I find reading comment sections interesting to know what other stances are thinking too, especially when it comes to some rather trending topics. I always read YouTube comments below these new videos, and there's a lot of short opinions from different stances. It also makes me rethink or challenge my stance, whether I'm agreeing or disagreeing others' stance. I also thought of compromising people's opinions. Maybe maybe compromising 80% of the videos from the publisher that we usually watch, and 20% are other commenting ones. In this way, we could easily receive what we want to watch and also having different opinions explained. As long as people do not go to an extent that they blindly support one side, completely ignoring other opinions, this would of course be a problem. But other than that, both filter bubbles and us could also change a bit to make the opinions better communicated.
Let's take a look at this example of how AI is used as a companion to lonely people. People invented AI sex robots to satisfy people's single people's sexual desires. People can experience raping, which is illegal in reality. However, this leads to people's relationships with each other being replaced by robots. The creation of sex robots is neutral by itself, and people have sexual desires only because they are lonely. But now, it has gone out of control. We need to draw a line to limit its development. There are several factors, such as it satisfying loneliness of different groups of people. Another factor is how humanized it is, so it can satisfy people's desires without replacing humans. Another factor is how humanized it. The last factor is the length of time people use sex bots. Too much time leads to them being over-dependent on relationships with sex bots. We need to draw a line between these three, so it is not too advanced to replace humans, but still satisfies loneliness. A less advanced technology is called a vibrator. It helps people to experience sex, but also not humanized on the appearance, so people will not be too attached to it. We still have to limit the time people spend on using it, so we should set a timer on the vibrator. But what about the lonely elderly? They don't need sex. A CareBot shaped like a cute seal is perfect for solving lonely elderly. It performs simple interactions with them, so they won't feel bored or lonely. If they desire better companions, they can play with a more advanced doll called Pepper. They dress them or sing and dance with them. All these robots are not too humanized and still satisfies loneliness. The only issue is that these products do not have a time limit, so people might depend on them to gain happiness. As you can see, AI is capable of brightening people's lives. This displayed the good of AI, so why don't we put it in better use?
Also, of course, having solutions is very important. When we are always having more and more news reports about the impacts of AI, both positive and negative ones, just like CareBots, some reports have said that it can make our lives much more convenient, but at the same time, it is also overtaking our responsibilities, taking care of our parents. So, there comes the debate between how much work the CareBots should do and how much we should do. Perhaps people would start to propose that we need a balance between AI and us. But what is balance? Does it mean that I need to divide the workload equally with the CareBot when I'm in the situation taking care of an elderly? A 50-50 balance? Is this the good way, the responsible way? This 50-50 balance surely isn't the best way to, or the only answer, because you would also consider that CareBots are better than us in memorizing medication, doctor appointments, food diets, or carrying the elderly. They were programmed to do these repetitive tasks with zero mistakes. Therefore, we don't need to do that much work. That's why you can't judge a person as irresponsible when he lets the CareBot handle 80% of the work, including all the repetitive tasks, personal hygiene, housework, meals, and then he takes up 20% of chatting or taking walks with the elderly. Different people would choose differently. There's no right or wrong. However, when we know that CareBots really have the potential to take up all the responsibility, then would it be okay when people let CareBots do 100% of the workload and they only make occasional visits with their parents, and actually they can even simply walk away from the responsibilities? Should this be allowed? Though, I think this would be the line where people have to make a compromise about the ethics value. I think when it comes to this case, the government should take a step in and make policies. Whether it is appropriate or not to use CareBots in this way, perhaps there should be a way to let people not entirely depending on CareBots. I could only think of pushing people to make a half-day holiday for CareBots every week. Let it charge power or renew the information, because I think at the same time, this could push people to spare this half-day when the CareBot is regenerating to help their parents. In this way, we can give freedom to people to choose how much they want to use CareBots for most of the week. And just in case they're running away from all the responsibilities, we can push people to spare one half day each week to take up their role as a son or a daughter.
We know that AI is always helping us, but when we realize that CareBots are starting to overtake our responsibilities and roles that we would have to draw a line, it's just the same when filter bubbles are taking a bigger step in deciding what content we want to watch or design sex robots and getting more and more erotic. The only question is where the line should be. Different people have their own thoughts and own limitations. Just by taking sex bots as an example, there are people who think it should be banned and also people who think it should be free to design and use it. Then which side of the opinion should we support? Furthermore, should we take the professional's opinion or normal people's opinion? There's a lot of factors determining which solution you would choose, while, in the end, the solution is going to take action might not always be the best one to everyone. It is certain that AI can bring us some good things, like making people happier by satisfying loneliness, like AI care products. It can also reduce human effort and time when completing tedious tasks like boring chores or factory work, and helping us have a better sense of judgment, since it analyzes loads of data at once to feed us the most suitable ones. This gives us more and more free time and have better lives. These are certainly defined as good. We need to strive for these impacts when developing AI. But AI also brings us bad impacts, such as replacing human relationships, causing ethical problems of bots and humans, and also blinding us with our judgments. These are part of the definition considered as bad. We need to think thoroughly on the bad impacts caused, since they're always caused unintendedly. The line between them is like how they will affect us in the gray zone that needs to be drawn more clearly. Therefore, finally, we would like to bring out a message that it is hard to draw a clear line between good and bad, the best or the worst. These solutions that we can think of may not be the best solution. It takes a lot of time and action to measure that can compromise both sides of opinions. Therefore, at the end, we would also like you to rethink about under what conditions, what AI robots should be used, and where the line should be drawn so it can be put into better use, creating a better society between AI and humans. Thank you.